Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 15th, 2022 meeting of the Litchfield Planning Board. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I will do the roll call of members. Michael Croto, Chair.
Kay Stevens, Vice Chair.
Ron Stevens, member.
Kimberly Queenan, Selectman's Rep.
Sam Terrell, member.
James Buffetti, member.
Okay, and we have with us Mr. Jay Mankara from NRPC. Good evening. And Joan McKibben, our Planning Board Administrator. First item on the agenda this evening is public input on non-agenda items not on the agenda for this evening. Is there any members of the public that wish to comment on non-agenda items? Okay. Hearing none, I will close public input on non-agenda items, and we'll go to the first item on this evening, which is a site plan review for an expansion at Olson's Mobile Home Park for 55 units of residential housing on the existing 40 acres. Zoning Board approval on 3/21/2022 to allow residential manufactured homes in the Southern Commercial Industrial Service District, Map 1, Lot 32, 13 Charles Bancroft Highway. Owner is Patriot Holdings, LLC. I believe we did a notice of regional impact for this case, and it looks like the applicant is requesting a continuation. Is that my understanding? Right. Okay. And they're scheduled, when are they thinking of coming in?
December 20th.
December 20th? Okay. All right. So if the aforementioned application is accepted, notice is hereby extended to application approval, consideration, or continuations to a date certain as required. So we do have a request or a motion to continue the hearing on the site plan review for this plan to December 20th. So I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to continue this hearing to December 22nd, 2022, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstain. Motion passes 6-0-0. Okay. Next item, number 2, is Recreation Commission input on pickleball courts at Sawmill Park off Albuquerque Ave. And is anybody here this evening for that?
Supposed to come.
Okay. All right, well, we'll, if anybody shows up, we'll kind of put that one aside for now. And if they show up, then we'll address it after. Item 3, work session, home occupations in Northern Commercial Zone. And I guess, Jay, you can lead us off.
Seems like you want to start Northern Commercial or home occupation?
Why don't we do home occupation? How's that?
Got some paper drafts.
We should do Northern Commercial.
Okay, unless the board wants to do the commercial first. Northern Commercial.
Yeah, you made that motion for December 22nd, but I think it's the
20th.
20th.
Oh, the 20th? I'm sorry.
We said the 20th.
I think, didn't you say 22nd though?
Did I?
I don't know.
Okay. Maybe I did.
Did somebody
I
hear it?
couldn't.
I thought I heard 22nd.
No, I meant the 20th.
Okay. As long as
It's
Matthew has
the
it correct
Tuesday,
back there.
the third Tuesday of the month, whatever that falls on.
Sit down.
Yeah.
These are just, this is the language that we had. I'm just passing that out for reference, and I can just kind of walk through it and remind everybody what we were talking about. I also thought that it might be a good idea. You may recall we had several work sessions on this last year, and so I've got a few things I thought I would just throw out there. We did have a presentation that was made. Oh, hopefully I can open this. to us, which I can call up at any point. Just a few highlights I wanted to show. There was also a master plan, a conceptual master plan that was put together to show how some of the properties could be developed. I'll just shrink that a little bit. So that is this. And will also, and then we can come back to these at any point if it makes sense. This is the presentation that was put together. And if I could just move on down, there's, various, fair amount of information in here, but just kind of briefly this is kind of nice because it zooms in on where the Northern Commercial District is, what we're talking about. And kind of which properties are the properties that we're really zooming in on. I'll come back to any of this at any point that we want. I'll throw that up for now.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What street did that start at, on the southern end of the highlighted area?
Which?
The yellow highlighted area.
This is the yellow highlighted area here. It's kind of that loop, Colby Road. And then this is Albuquerque.
Okay.
And then you've got this little area here, which is kind of across from Mel's.
Okay, thank you.
And I can come back to any of this at any point. So I'm just noting that we have this for reference. We also have a presentation that Kate had put together on just mixed-use village districts. And so we have this as a reference if we'd like to look, so any of these materials that we want to look at any point, we can reference. So, but again, we spent a fair amount of time going through this. So I'm just going to kind of walk through, if I could, this draft that we'd come up with last year. Doesn't mean that this is what we want to do or look at this year, but I thought I would just refresh everybody's memory, and then we can take it where we want to take it.
I just want to clarify, I didn't put that together, I just found it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't want to take credit, because that was a lot of work, whoever put that together.
It was a lot of work. But that was, informs, I think, our thinking. So as you recall, last year, we made some pretty significant changes to the Northern Commercial District, other districts as well, but in the Northern Commercial District, in particular, to expand the range of allowable uses. And we introduced some conditional uses, most notably smaller warehousing and distribution facilities were allowed as a conditional use. So one of the items that we also considered adding and then decided to pull was adding another conditional use, which would be for what was called mixed-use village development. So the intention there was for larger parcels in this district to allow multifamily residential, or allow residential, but multifamily residential in particular, so long as it was a part of a mixed-use type of development. And so basic conditions were it had to be that the site had to be not less than 5 acres. That's why, in kind of looking back at one of those maps that showed different parcels, obviously there's a limited number of 5-acre parcels that are undeveloped in the Northern Commercial Zone that this would have applied to. And again, permitted uses, single-family, two-family, and multifamily, indoor and outdoor recreation uses, sales offices, and then commercial uses. The idea is that you would have to include a commercial component within one of these mixed-use developments. Maximum of 6 units per building, density of 2.5, consistent with the multifamily overlay. And then key was not less than 100 square feet of commercial space per residential unit. So that was to ensure that there would be that minimum commercial piece. Some language again around the character, preserving key site features. Not huge, but an open space requirement. I'm moving on down. Number 8, importantly, there had to be a fiscal impact study to demonstrate that there'd be a net positive fiscal impact from the development to the town. And then, language again, speaking to ensuring that a development proposed is consistent with the character of the area. And then there also had to be a timing and phasing plan. And what that was intended to do was make sure that all the residential didn't get developed and the commercial never got developed. Essentially, that there had to be a phasing plan that ensured that it was going to be fiscally sound. So that's the language that we talked about last time. Doesn't mean that that's what we should consider at this point, but just as a way of starting off the conversation. And, you know, I'm also happy to jump back to any of the, you know, the presentations or information that I referenced. So that's kind of a starting point.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I just have a comment on that. It was, and I don't remember how far back this went, but the economics at the time, I know they've changed, but the commercial was gonna be at the northern and southern part of town, right? So you're gonna have to get buy-in from the town. Obviously, it's a zoning ordinance anyway, but whatever they came up with for that formula of what they thought was gonna be business taxes versus residential, probably should be looked at. Just so we can see that, whatever, you know, because we have to match it up against this fiscal impact study as well. But there was a reason they did that, probably to keep it more agricultural and residential anyway, but now you're introducing homes into what they wanted at the time to be economic, you know, businesses, so.
It's definitely a change, absolutely.
So we have to have the town buy into that and make the case for that.
That's where I felt like this was more than just a planning board thing, whether it's we just hold more workshops to really get more public involved, or having a subcommittee to really flush out what this should look like, because that's a big change, introducing residential into commercial. But I can see the positives of it, where if it's purely commercial there, then it could very easily develop into another section of 102, which I don't know that that is what town residents want either.
Right.
So, that's where I think a subcommittee would help, but it's, you know, will of the board.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's gonna be a matter of what it's going to be envisioned as part of that mixed use. I mean, certainly, you could have, you know, housing and people who have local businesses or that work, you know, out of their home or occupation, or people that, you know, whether you want to have some sort of a restaurant or a bank or something that would, you know, sort of blend into sort of the character of the town. I think that's the key to looking at this. I mean, you want to maintain, which is a balancing, I know, but balancing the character of the town versus the development, what it's going to look like, I guess.
The draft language under section 2 said commercial uses including retail, office, restaurant, personal and professional services, and other non-residential uses developed in harmony with residential uses within the MUVD, but not including gas stations, automobile service and repair, or warehousing and distribution. That's kind of that concept.
Oh,
Jay?
Oh, that's not excluding gas stations from the entire northern commercial.
Right,
That's-
just
okay.
within,
Just this thing,
just
yeah.
thinking what would make sense
Yep,
as part of a mixed-use development.
okay.
Can you pull up the pictures,
Yeah.
just so we have a better visual of what we're speaking about?
Obviously, I take no ownership, but these were examples that, you know, Kate had found of kind of developments like this.
Right.
That's probably pretty consistent. So, I mean, you know, the people walking here, that's probably a little more urban, but, you know, multifamily, that kind of fits into a more traditional looking design. Here you've got, you know, the kind of retail that you might see integrated in something like this. Moving on down.
I saw a couple that had, like a little center,
Yeah.
a little square.
I think ideally there would be some sort of, open space or green. Here's some more examples. The pictures are small, so.
Not as big as Waterville Valley, but, because it's a town, but around its common area, there's homes around it. Have you ever seen that? They have a deli and a whatever. They have a little business district there, but the homes surround it.
And there are a lot of examples of this, type of development. Here's kind of a layout of one that shows a commercial area, kind of over on one area, an open space or green, and then the housing around. This one shows a variety of housing types. So these are bigger buildings are pretty clearly multifamily, and these are single family or duplex on individual lots. That would be, probably consistent with the kind of thing that we're talking about. In fact, very much so. You can see here they were showing percentages, if that comes up on the screen, of non-residential, open space, residential, open space, etc. And then again, it kind of goes through the mix. You can see here they're pointing out apartments, what they're calling twins, which we would call duplexes, and then the singles.
I thought there were some of them that were kind of appealing, where there was a residential or a dwelling and a business right next to it, and in some cases right underneath it.
Right. This is a bit more of a suburban style,
Right.
but certainly you could get more urban where you actually have mixed-use buildings themselves. That's certainly possible. Down here are some images. This is, realistically, this is probably more what you'd see in Litchfield with the commercial uses, closer to 3A residential uses in the rear, but I mean, you certainly could do mixed-use buildings as well. Again, examples of different types, layouts. This is kind of a detail of, interesting pictures. Tobacco-oriented business, but nevertheless, this kind of shows some of the design elements. Actually, these design elements are pretty consistent with what we already have in our site plan regulations. Because we really do incorporate a lot of design elements like that. They get into massing.
The reason why I asked you to pull it up is because I found, looking at the pictures that you sent, rather revealing and appealing, to be honest with you. And I thought that everybody should be able to see it.
Absolutely. And if this were to move forward, these are the kind of images, and I'm sure there's other good examples out there that we would, want to share. Go back to one of these.
I don't have the zoning ordinance memorized, but what's the height limit? 3 stories?
35 feet.
Okay. It's not greater than 4 stories, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't even think
I'd have to look it up.
The way it is. I'll double check just to
Oh,
make
yeah,
sure.
I can look it up, but it's just so we don't have what's next to Market Basket.
Yeah, I don't think we
Big
would
buildings.
allow. Yeah, I'll double check just to make sure that.
Mr. Charbonneau, do you know how tall the townhouses are off Page Road, Callaway?
I would say 24.
Okay. Just trying to get an idea of what 35 feet looks like.
So, last year when we brought this before you, it's been my envision with the golf course, retail as what was allowed out there is pretty much gone. That's not gonna happen. So then the alternative is to build a commercial building. I personally don't. I think we can make something that's appealing. It can be like a town center, coming into a town center with the golf course. That's why we showed getting rid of the driveway for Litchfield, so we move that away from this whole area. And making that a town center type area. So we'll have from Warren's basically all the way to stores and see how little inventory they have in it.
Right.
We've all changed our ways. So it can be some things in there, but even filling it up with commercial is gonna be, it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be little restaurants, coffee shops, you know, that type of thing. It's gonna, what I see being in there. And making the whole thing with the golf course and all that kind of come together, rather than seeing a 50,000 square foot or 40,000 square foot commercial building sitting out there. Which I think they have their place, but I don't think it's right there.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest reason why I've never done anything there yet, because I've never liked anything that I thought we could put out there. And it's not something that has to happen now, it's just something we need to keep working on to come up with an idea that everybody likes.
I like the idea of more restaurants and coffee shops and things like that. Like you said, not retail. I just don't see people coming out to come and shop for clothes, you know, really anywhere in Litchfield. I think it would draw more people if it was somewhere to eat.
It's gonna be it's gonna be tough to make 100 square feet work
Right.
per unit,
Right.
but we gotta try. We're gonna make it a mixed use, we need to make that happen. We can do it, like, maybe we can get like I said, a small grocery store,
Or a general store.
or a general store, so, you know, something like that,
You'd probably get a barber shop or a hair salon, maybe,
yeah.
you know, that kind of personal service, dry cleaner.
Well, there's a barber shop already in town right there. But more's better competition, I guess.
Yeah, but whatever, I mean,
Yeah,
things like that, I mean, it's just different things that we don't have in this town. You know, I mean, put a bakery at this end of
Yeah,
town, I don't know,
Right.
something, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, because when you first proposed the idea, I honestly was not thrilled about it, because I hate to see what little that's left of commercial land go towards residential. But after really researching into this and basically deciding our options, I think you're right that it mixed makes more sense there, because you couldn't just build a couple of these smaller stores out on their own like that without, you know, some community around it to support it. But because of that change, because of adding that residential, that's where I think we need a little more input.
I mean, you can have more public hearings, but to get people to show up to them is almost impossible unless you make it sound really bad, then
Yeah.
they'll show up.
Yeah, it worked with the
Oh, great, we can make it sound really exciting.
You know, it just nobody gets involved, and, I mean, forever and ever it's been that way.
I mean, one option is to, you know, to send it to public hearing and, you know, kind of see what happens. But just in terms of dates, we have to hold our first public hearing, unless we want to choose different days for the planning board, and that's always hard, January 3rd,
Okay.
and our second, the 24th.
I still think we need input from other people. It's moving too quick.
Yeah.
And maybe a survey, because I think people may be shocked at first, but then just show pictures of option A will be warehouses, what it would look like, right? I mean, I think people would say, yeah. Instead of showing up to a town, you know, meeting and go, what? You know, just,
Well, I mean, I like the idea of a town center, and I like the idea of maybe having part of that as an open space, and then putting in like a restaurant, or maybe some kind of cafe, or a coffee shop, or something, or a general store or something. And I think that might make it, you know, palatable.
I think it'll be attractive. I think they want it. Instead of 20 minutes out of town to go to a store and 20 minutes back.
Yeah, when I say coffee shop, I don't mean a Dunkin' Donuts, I mean.
Right.
Right, sit down, yeah.
Like the sun, the hot sun, like the one around there, sun.
High rise? Hot rise?
Hot Rise.
Yeah.
That's a nice little place. I
Yep.
mean, you know, I think something like that is more what I think of. I mean, there's enough Dunkin' Donuts, and I think we need a better looking building.
I agree.
Higher quality food, yeah.
Yeah, something like that, that hopefully the people in town would support.
If we think that this is not ready for this town meeting, and we need more time, there are some grant funds out there we could also go after to kind of help fund the planning process.
Okay.
It looks like it's gonna be successful, it's just the way you have to get the buy-in. Right. And, or maybe we're missing something obvious, I don't know, you know, on the financial side. You know, if the town was counting on some kind of money, which hasn't come in yet, because there's no buildings out there, but whatever they were thinking. Yeah.
I think back when we did that, way back when, it was just to make sure that the farmland stayed the way it was, that didn't get developed commercially. That was the vision. And to put it at the north end and the south end, and just because I think we had to have some of it, we thought we had to have it. It never materialized. And even at the south end, probably never gonna materialize.
But we thought we'd get a circumferential highway there.
We don't have the access, you know, we just don't have the access, so. The land's been sold a couple times down there, it's owned by developers now, and they're just waiting something to come along, but without sewer, we're gonna end up with little things. I mean, it's just a warehouse that doesn't need much, that doesn't need sewer, but if you need any manufacturing, anything like that, it's not gonna happen without sewer, and we don't have it. And nobody's ever wanted to, any of the boards or the selectmen, and no one's wanted to bring it through. You know, I've told you before, I raised a couple $100,000 to have something happen, and nothing happened. And I gave it to whoever, the planning board or whatever they did with it, but it never went anywhere. Money's gone, but it never went anywhere. So,
Okay.
and back when we did that, it didn't matter where it was just to try to get it going. It didn't happen. So it's really, it's not something that has to happen this year, but it has to happen sometime, you know? I mean,
Right. Yeah, I certainly think that, I think it's something that we need to look at.
I think so, and it can help with the housing issue, right? I'm not saying affordable, because affordable doesn't exist as much, but anyway, it's,
More diversity housing
just the
types.
diversity. I was just looking at the map, I'm not, you're like, why is he staring? There's still a lot of open land here, I'm not sure how much till build out, but I'm just looking, it's up in that part of town, you know, there's still a lot of woods.
It's pretty much what you see there
Yeah,
in
I was
pink.
making it over there, just putting it over that side there.
So, at least in here says, density is not greater than 2.5 units per acre, but there's no lot sizes called out,
Right.
so,
Because it could be multifamily, it could be
Okay.
single, it could be detached condos.
okay, I'm just wondering if that needs to be put in there, like, if it's a detached home,
I mean,
maybe we
certainly
allow
could.
the, cause I think, what is it,
Could you
open space
be more
development allows a
specific?
half acre,
Okay.
versus traditional development is an acre. So, maybe it's, you know, reference another section of our ordinances for lot sizes, or something I think should be put out,
Yeah, if
put
that's
in
what we
there.
want to do, sure.
so you actually say it has to be at least 5 acres.
The overall site has to be 5
Site.
acres, yeah.
No, I'm thinking,
You're thinking individual
like,
lot size.
individual lot size, like, there's no minimum or maximum or anything in here on that, so I was just thinking we should put, like, if we, in my mind, I see smaller than an acre, you know, allowed for a residential, for a detached home, but,
It
and
was
some
just-
people might say, no, it's gotta be,
I
you know,
know,
this big.
I honestly don't think there's gonna be a single family home built in something like this.
I think they're gonna be a multi-unit, 3 duplexes or bigger, up to 6 units.
Right, but we certainly could put something in.
Yeah, I mean,
But if you are, then you should, but I don't think that.
But I think that that's something that then people will need to understand to be able to consider this as an ordinance. I don't want it to come across like, hey, this is what we're thinking, and then, I just want it to be transparent, I guess, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So where do we go from here then?
well, I think what we have to do is maybe, I don't know if there's other, well, obviously, I mean, I think you would, put in a community in one of those, attachments, but, you know, look at maybe other communities
We could definitely do that.
and see what their maybe overlay in this particular region or area, just to get an idea of what that might possibly look like.
We could do that as a full board and workshops, or we could do it with the subcommittee, whatever. you
Well,
think would
I
be
guess,
best.
yeah, that's the other question too. I mean, if we do a subcommittee, who wants, I mean, is anyone interested in being on the subcommittee? I know Kate
Sure,
has an
yeah, I would
interest.
do that, yep.
I mean, I'm certainly happy to participate and help out. I don't know if there's anybody else. Do we want, like,
I'll help out.
you would like to?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so,
remember-
We can do a little work and then bring it back to the board, and,
Yeah.
and then we can also strategize around outreach.
Right. So maybe,
Around what?
Outreach.
Outreach, okay.
yeah,
And there's definitely multiple examples out there that we can find, so we could spend some time, doing some research. In an ideal world, we find some good examples that are within driving distance.
Am-
Can actually see
Amherst,
them.
yeah. Good survey again, we're gonna do another survey.
We could.
Get it more
so
interesting.
that's another option too. I mean,
Absolutely.
Facebook brings it in.
I mean, we got a lot of stuff when we did the one for the capital improvement.
Right. Well, it's also a logical time to be updating the housing chapter of the master plan.
So that could
happen alongside.
complement
Yeah.
into that, segue into that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess, Kate, Ron, and myself, and maybe Jay can, you know, maybe have a discussion about that, and,
Okay,
we can, you know, put together a workbook and,
so are those subcommittee meetings separate from planning board meetings? I'm trying to remember how that worked last time we had a subcommittee.
Usually it's separate, but we
Yeah.
could, I mean, you can do just workshops with the whole board, so it really comes
yeah, I
down to
mean,
a
we I
preference.
could do that
if
too.
you
I mean, I'm
wanna do
not
that,
trying to
or-
exclude anybody.
I
know. I know you had said something about subcommittees, but I mean, certainly if you want to do it as a board, we can certainly do that as well. I'm not,
What do you guys think?
No, either way, yeah,
you
whichever,
guys want to do it.
whichever y'all prefer is fine.
Whole board.
I do as well.
Okay,
I can attend.
Okay.
so then,
All right.
So we could certainly, so we
That
can,
works.
Continue to talk about it here.
we could
Okay.
pick, since it's not a rush, because we're probably booked for December, but we could pick a day, one of the planning board meetings in January, maybe bring it back.
Yeah.
to,
And it'll be in the minutes,
Like-
people will see it, right? It'll be reported back to the board of selectmen, they'll see it. It'll
Yeah.
just start to get churning.
but that meeting in January would be
A
the
workshop.
first workshop
Yeah.
on it,
Right.
okay.
Well, my first subcommittee is shortest one on earth.
Okay. All right, so we'll do that for January.
Okay.
Okay, and then I can start, you know, I can do the Facebook post and
Okay.
start spreading word.
Yeah, I think, you know, the more, I think that's important, get the word out. And, you know, I know a lot of people don't come to meetings, but I think maybe getting the word out is,
Try. Maybe we can get them to at least watch.
If they watch, at least they see the
We're gonna-
workshop, right?
Well, you just gotta tell them we're gonna put speed bumps in it, then everybody will come.
there you go.
That's what it worked with Albert.
A good one.
We'll bring him in here.
So is that the 3rd or the 17th? Do we have?
Probably the 17th is a
17th.
safer bet,
Okay.
yeah.
So, I think so too.
Go get
One or
more.
more, I shouldn't presume, I'm just gonna guess, one or more of the applications that we'll be looking at will be continued.
Okay.
17th of what month?
January.
January.
Assuming we're going to go on to home
Village. Mixed use, okay. Okay.
Also complements the sidewalks now being built. Nice strategy.
Yeah, I had that as a note. There's nothing about sidewalks
Yeah.
in this.
But
in here.
Good point.
But we'll save that for. Cobblestone. Okay.
Right, so this is a first pass at home occupations. It actually wound up being more involved and larger than I thought it was gonna be. But this is a continuation of the last conversation that we had at a workshop. We looked at some different examples of home occupation ordinances from some other communities. And the main thing that, kind of common theme that we were looking at was we have just home occupations and they require a planning board review, and then we kind of recognize that there are all kinds of home businesses out there that don't require planning board review, and there's not a whole lot of guidance around that. They're just kind of the invisible ones that are out there. And then we had some conversations in particular around firearms, and then kind of got more involved around some of the other things that may be more impactful perhaps, like childcare, or have different requirements. And then one of the things that we noted were there were a number of communities that had kind of like a level 1 and a level 2, or home occupations allowed by right, home occupations that require a permit, whether that's, in some cases, it's zoning board special exception, in some cases it's planning board. So what I tried to do was take a look at some of the ordinances from some other communities, most particularly Merrimack and Londonderry, and kind of look at how they're regulating these and take some of the elements of those, as well as some other things that just seem to make sense, and incorporate them into our ordinance. And so what I tried to do was keep as much of the existing language that we already have in the ordinance. Whether that still makes sense after you see how much change is done, I don't know. Maybe it's probably follows better to just say it's all, we just changed the whole thing. But I'm gonna kind of walk through it, and then we can open it up for discussion. And if there's typos and errors, I wouldn't be surprised, because like I said, this is the first pass. So just starting with the very top, of course, the section remains the same. This is not, hugely important, but we don't have any kind of purpose, statement, so I just kind of stuck in a generic purpose statement as to what the point is, which is basically to allow some opportunities for home-based businesses while protecting the residential characters of the area. I think that's pretty consistent. You can see kind of the first section. We have a section that's called general requirements. I just said general requirements for all home occupations, because later on you're going to see we've got two different types, so just makes it clearer. If the language that you're seeing is just normal font, that means this is existing language. So it's what we already have in the ordinance. It is, so what you see in dark italic is language that has been added. So B, not huge, but, I guess it's just kind of emphasizing home occupations are not supposed to detract from that rural residential character. And D, I stuck on the word applicable. That's not hugely necessary, but I did. And then G, just kind of a stronger statement on off-street parking, that it does have to have, the use has to have, all home occupations have to have adequate parking, but we also don't want them putting in more parking that would be customary in a residential area. So you don't want to see a parking lot created off to the side. And this was kind of something I think that did come up in our conversations. You don't want to see delivery of goods and materials in vehicle. You know, you want these to be the type of vehicles that make residential deliveries. You don't want to see trucks pulling up. Otherwise, the rest of this language is the same. So the next big change you really see is 50402, which is what's called home occupations permitted by right. Different terminology you could use. That was a terminology I use. And essentially, these are the home occupations that do not require any review or approval, so long as they adhere to these following requirements. The general concept here consistently is these are basically home occupations that are conducted within a home that aren't visible. There's really no external sign. I thought about giving examples, I didn't, but that's something we could do if we thought that that would be helpful. So again, the first one, it's not visible to surrounding properties or the street. It's conducted entirely within the existing residence or accessory buildings. There only resident vehicles are on the property, so no commercial vehicles. And this type of home occupation has no outside employees. It's just people who live in the home. There is no increased traffic. I'm on to the second page. There is no sign of any type, so this is really supposed to be an invisible business. There are no customers or visitors, solicitations coming to the home. So this is not the type of business, for example, like a hair salon, like we've had, where you've got clients coming. So no clients, no display of goods, no exterior storage of vehicles or equipment. No on-site retail or wholesale sales, and here expressly, there are no sales, service, or manufacturing of firearms on the premises for commercial purposes. We can keep that. We don't have to keep that. But the concept is if you're selling or manufacturing firearms, you do need to come to the board. We could say we don't want it at all, but that's how this is structured. Again, I'm not wedded to any of this, so we can change or amend. The next section are home occupations requiring planning board approval. And this first paragraph is actually right out of our existing regulations. I just added some additional language. So this applies to any home occupation which is evident to the general public must apply for and receive a permit from the planning board to operate. That's how we say it now. Subject to the following criteria, in addition to the general requirements of section 504.01. So that's referring back to the general requirements that will apply to all home occupations. So you meet those and you meet these. And then we also have language in there now that says evidence of a home occupation includes, but is not limited to. I added employment of non-residents of the dwelling, on-site sales or service provision. Again, we could play with that. So this is why I'm saying maybe just keeping language and replacing it might not make sense, but everything that you see here, again, that's in normal font is language that we already have. I just inserted a couple of other items. No biggie, it's not even all that necessary. We allow 2 non-family employees. I said up to. This we can debate, but for 4, it said exterior storage of materials and equipment must be screened from view rather than is prohibited under this higher tier. I thought we might allow them if they're completely screened. And then again, there's no change. So the rest of this is really all the language that we currently have. So not a lot of substantive change to home occupations that require planning board approval. This section today, to this point, what we're really doing is just clarifying what needs planning board approval and what doesn't, and then providing some general requirements. So this next one is a significant change, and it's one that we really have not addressed in our regulations. Other home occupation regulations do, and this is child care. So this is limited to family child care facilities as home occupations. You don't have to limit it to this. I thought it was probably prudent to, but that's certainly something to be debated. I will just add, I mentioned that there are communities that have home occupations allowed by right and those that require planning approval. There are some that have another tier that they call major home occupations. I didn't go there, but there are some that will allow a daycare center above and beyond a family child care, for example, as a major home occupation. I'm not so sure we want that, but we could absolutely do that if we thought about it. So what the definition of a family childcare facility is defined under state law, and so I went with state law. So this is saying family childcare facilities are, basically they are permitted as a home occupation, subject to the following criteria. Once again, in addition to the criteria you saw before. So this references 50401, which are the requirements that apply to all home occupations, and it references 50403, which are home occupations requiring planning board approval. So we're just making it clear that it has to meet all the requirements above. In addition to that, capacity is limited to 6 children. There are some exceptions to that, and what this language that you see here in 1, this is parroting the statutory language almost verbatim. This is what is allowed in terms of licensing requirements from the state for what's considered child, basically this is home family care. 2, outdoor players have to be adequately fenced and screened. Then there's language in here that the planning board, shall consider the potential impact to surrounding properties. We can go into detail on that. It does have to apply with all applicable licensing requirements. Clarifies that the planning board can impose additional restrictions if it deems it necessary. And then it does require that for, every year they do have to show proof that they are licensed. So that's really pretty straightforward. A lot of it comes out of statute. I think also just important to note is under our current regulations and the way this is structured is if you want to apply for home occupation to the planning board, you have to go to the site plan regulations, and in our site plan regulations, we have requirements that specify how, what your submittal requirements are. You have to provide a sketch, you have to show your lighting, etc. So this is not exhaustive. We also have regulations in our site plan regs, so just important point to note. Next, I also added a section on adult daycare. This is almost exactly the same. It doesn't quite have the same statutory requirements as childcare facilities do. Once again, I limited it to a capacity of 6. That's really not because of statute. That's just because it is basically to be consistent with childcare. The rest of this language is very much the same. Planning board makes sure it doesn't adversely impact surrounding uses. It has to comply with all applicable state requirements. Planning board can impose additional requirements, and then once again, they have to show every year proof of their license to the town. The next section and the last section, which are kind of these special ones, are firearms sales, service, and manufacturing. I think as obviously the board is aware, we've had a couple of these. I know we've talked about some different issues. I've probably not thought about everything that has come up, but these were a few of the things that seem to come up. Once again, so this is saying they are permitted as a home occupation. Again, that's debatable whether we want that or not. Once again, noting it has to comply with the requirements that we noted above. It needs planning board approval. It needs to comply with the requirements that are applicable to all home occupations. And then it has to obviously meet these next specific ones. No retail or wholesale sales on site. So again, we can debate that, but the idea there is that it really is limited to special order, somebody shipping elsewhere. You're not offering them for sale retail on site. Now again, we could debate that. We did have one that did do that. There is no business sign of any type. All firearms, ammunition-related materials have to be safely and securely stored at all times when not in use. The applicant shall demonstrate that adequate security systems are provided, including locks, alarms, cameras, and other similar measures. There shall be no print, online, or other advertising that includes the physical address or location of the premises. There shall be no indoor or outdoor firing ranges or the discharge of firearms on site. The applicant shall demonstrate compliance with all applicable state and federal laws. And the planning board, again, this is similar to the language you saw before, shall consider whether the facility will adversely affect subject property, et cetera. Again, we can come back and talk about any of these. Are there more things we want to see in there? Are there fewer things, or, et cetera? Next is a new section that we don't have language like this, and it just is a list of prohibited uses. So it just makes clear that certain things are prohibited, period, as a home occupation. The first one's not surprising language. You just, no use that uses or stores regulated hazardous substances, et cetera. Motor vehicle, machinery, service, maintenance, repair, and painting. Motor vehicle and machinery sales. Medical, dental, and veterinary practice. Again, we can debate any of these. Typically, the reason you include something like that is those tend to draw a lot of people. But again, that we don't have to put that in there, or it could become one of those special ones, like the other ones above, that you allow under certain conditions. Kennels and landscaping. Landscaping usually makes lists like this because it typically involves heavier vehicles and very often involves storage of quantities of things like mulch on site. And then the rest of this, the procedure, this is where you note that a request for home occupation shall be presented to the planning board in accordance with section 140, submission procedure, and 151, submission requirements for home occupations and site plan review regulations. So that's the tie back. That's existing language. All the rest of these are existing language that we have in our ordinances today. That's it.
Might want to consider the prohibited uses like because we've had it in town, I believe, firewood.
I was just writing that, manufacturing the firewood.
That's a good point. You're right. I've run into that in another
What
town.
does that mean? Manufacturing firewood?
You can't bring in logs,
Grapple loads of
chop them
logs.
up and sell firewood. We've had that several times in town.
I'm dealing with that in another town. You're absolutely right. It's a huge issue. The noise of cutting it and stacking it, and yeah.
Legally, are we stepping on anybody from creating a way to make a living?
Sure. That's exactly the point.
No, I mean legally, I want a legal
Well-
attorney to look at the firearms section. Yeah.
I mean,
You're not outright prohibiting it. So
no, you're putting restrictions
You're giving
on it.
you're adding sort of a layer of.
And we certainly could ask our attorney to weigh in that,
Oh,
make sure we're
absolutely.
not
I would-
Especially with the,
stepping on any.
Definitely.
it's got the federal, I'm worried about the federal, we're not overstepping that.
Right.
Federal what?
The laws about guns, selling them out of your home. Because they have their own firearm, whatever that whole department is, right? Tobacco,
Right.
whatever.
ATF. Well,
ATF,
but
so-
that'd be
I don't know if it is ATF,
licensed by ATF. Either way.
but they do their own inspections and all of that as well, and sign off, so I don't know if we're stepping on something they're doing.
Well, and certainly the line in there that says there shall be no on-site retail or wholesale sales, I mean, we can strike that. If that's the concern, we could strike that.
Did you mean like, things that weren't being custom built? When you said that, as far as no retail or wholesale sales? Because what are they selling if it's not retail?
I guess my thinking was that it was going to be primarily mail order online,
Okay.
rather than people coming to the home and purchasing. But you are right in that I think we did have that example, and maybe this is too restrictive.
I'd like to
Okay.
see that say, no on-site wholesale sales, but if
Okay.
someone wants to come and buy one firearm, I'm okay with that.
That's fair.
And wholesale would be like a large order, you're
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah, you can't buy
Okay.
100 firearms, that's crazy.
Do we need to?
Well, how about
make
on-site
that
retail sales by appointment?
That's a good
I mean, the
I'd
problem
like
is,
to
it's,
see
you
that.
know, you're gonna create a shop that they can just stop by at any time.
That's a
Buy a
good
gun.
point. Right.
That's a good balance.
That's a very good point. Because that is the idea. You don't want anybody saying, driving by and,
So,
Right.
Jay, in the sections for the childcare and the adult daycare, in both sections, you put in a section that says that the planning board may impose additional conditions and restrictions it deems desirable and necessary to protect the residential character. You do not put that section in the firearm set. Is there a reason for that?
No.
Should that just be
That would
under
be-
50403?
So I tried to do that under 8, but I certainly could put, I can put that same language in.
Well, you mean where the planning board shall consider with the facility?
The planning board may impose additional conditions and restrictions it deems desirable and
Yeah,
necessary. to
there
protect
wasn't
the
a particular,
residential
I could
character.
certainly add that section, yes.
Yeah, that's one thing, if you're putting it under all three of those, then can it just go up under 50403 as a number 6 thing?
The reason it could, the reason I didn't is that this is kind of suggesting that these particular uses require a higher level of scrutiny that may,
Okay,
that was kind of really why, is that.
okay.
It'd be good to leave it in the particular section because the individual's looking at that section that applies to them.
Yeah, so I'll just add that one to firearms, and then everybody knows it's clear. And I guess to your point, sometimes people don't read the whole ordinance, they read the part that matters to them.
Yes. No, that makes sense.
And then I know this is existing language, but 50411, home occupations shall register with the planning board annually upon receipt of the registration forms from the board.
Yeah, I know.
Why do we have that in there?
I looked at that, and we probably ought to strike it, because that's not what happens.
Where-
Well, but why not just take out everything after the word annually?
We do
should
send
register
it-
with the
we do
planning
send
board
them
annually.
forms annually.
Do we?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry,
do that. We do send them forms annually.
we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's 20 that I have.
The ones that we know about, so there were a lot that we don't know about,
Right.
right? So,
Where are you looking?
It's 50411 on the
I mean,
last
it,
page.
it puts the burden on the town, so they only have to register if they receive a form from the town, which means the town knows that they're in operation.
Right.
If you say home occupation should register with the planning board annually, then that puts the burden on them to register
Except
annually.
that the ones that are out there that aren't registered aren't going to turn around and register. that we
Right,
don't
but
know
they'll be
about.
in violation of that provision.
There'd be more work to try and keep track of them not registering than just sending them form and having them send it back.
I mean, you can send the form out to them. I'm not sure that, the problem is the language conditions them registering upon receiving a registration form from the town. You can still send you can send the form out to them, but they'll say, well, I didn't register because I never received a
Yeah,
form, and the
yeah,
town's like, well, we didn't know you existed. Well, I didn't have to register because I didn't get a form.
Right.
We're
You
basically
take out
telling them they
upon
need to
registration.
register.
Right.
Right.
And if they
Right.
don't, they're outside of
Occupation
the.
shall register
We
with
can
the
send them
planning board
a
annually.
form.
Right, just
Yeah,
put a
take
period,
out
just
that
put a
last-
period
yeah.
after annually,
Good idea.
yeah.
And does that include the occupations permitted by right?
No. it
No.
wouldn't.
Should there be like an exception or accepts those permitted by
wait a
right
minute.
or something like that?
Why wouldn't it?
I mean, I guess it could.
I mean, it's a home occupation. What's the definition of a home occupation? You know, because that home occupation's permitted by right. That's still a home occupation.
That's
So
true.
if that was the intent, and I'm not sure that's what the intent, what we should do, but we would have to distinguish it, you know, that home occupations permitted by right do not have to register. You could put something.
That's
like
what I'm
that.
asking, like, what does the town want to see?
Right.
Is that gonna quadruple their paperwork that they're doing every year?
Well, you could say home occupations approved under section 504.03. That's the home occupations that require planning approval, so you could limit it to that.
Because if they come in and they say, and they meet the conditions of permit by right, then they don't really file a home occupation.
That's how it's happening
Right,
right
they don't-
now. And
they
is
don't-
that,
yeah.
we wanna continue that way? is
And
that
they
right?
wouldn't have to register.
Right.
Because, yeah.
So we'll just reference that section and it'll be clear, 504.03.
Okay. One thing that I noticed that I keep seeing a lot of things about you know, external storage, and I'm just thinking about where does it fall? Say you have, you know, a plumber who basically works out of his home because he's got his truck in the driveway, and just needs a small office space at home. I don't think that that needs to be screened. I would think that that would be okay to just park in a driveway. I think that's how it's done now too, so, I just don't wanna accidentally add a burden there to people that, you know, their work vehicle happens to have, you know, their business
Would that be,
on the side.
would that be exterior storage? If you have equipment on your vehicle and your vehicle's parked in your driveway,
That's what I'm asking, like,
Right.
is
I
this
don't-
prohibiting that by
I can
mistake?
clarify that,
Yeah.
because it wasn't the intent.
Like it-
If you see for the home occupations that don't require approval, it expressly says exterior storage of commercial vehicles, and it didn't here with the intent of not excluding them, but that's not explicit. So I can make it explicit that you
Okay.
can have a commercial vehicle.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, cause I think we should be able to do
Yeah.
that,
You might wanna limit the size of it.
That's true.
okay, like no, cause then there's also, you know, you're saying landscaping businesses are prohibited, but are there landscapers that kind of work the same way, where they don't necessarily own a, you know, or they're not working from a site, or owning a site that stores mulch, but they just have a truck and a trailer, and they go pick up mulch
their lawn
day
mowers.
to
That's,
day.
that's a good point. Maybe we shouldn't be so restrictive. It's just clear that you can't store, storage of materials outside.
Right.
Or at least it has to be adequately screened. So that's a good point.
Most
It's
people
probably
store
too
in their
severe
shed.
to exclude landscapers.
So, yeah, I guess I'm just not,
Yeah, you're right, because somebody could have a mowing business.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, where it's just a,
That's probably too restrictive.
We may have to be careful with the size of the vehicles, because some people drive a truck for a living, an 18-wheeler, and they park in their
Right.
house. I mean,
do they?
well, I don't know, I see it, but
seen
I
it.
don't know if they have a home office to do the paperwork and the bookkeeping, I don't know.
I've never seen a semi parked in a neighborhood,
Oh, they're around.
yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it in some areas. I don't think I've seen it in Litchfield, but I have seen it.
Oh, there-
But
there's
that's how they
several.
make their living, I
Since
mean.
I've seen school
it's-
buses.
I mean,
You just have to put a limit, would you want,
or where it's parked, maybe on the
Yeah,
property.
I guess,
would you want a big orange dump truck in the neighborhood, I guess that's the question.
Right, but if they
Like a
weren't,
class, a
if they
vehicle
weren't
class or something?
operating a home occupation, right, they just brought the truck home that night, or they bring it home every Wednesday from their regular job, I don't think there'd be restriction on that, you know? They're not, I mean, so we're saying if you have a home occupation, you can have a vehicle that you could have if you didn't have a home occupation. I'm not sure we can do that.
right, you can have, this ordinance is not intended to govern somebody who brings a work vehicle home.
Right.
If you're operating a business out of your home, you need a home occupation requirement.
Right, so if you're operating a business out of your home, you couldn't bring a vehicle, you couldn't have a vehicle in your driveway that you could have if you weren't operating a home.
We're changing that, though. The intent is that you can.
Okay, all right.
But this is not intended to regulate the question of, if you're bringing home your 18-wheeler. This doesn't address that.
Right, but
People do.
you can do it now.
They have to, where else are they gonna put it, you know?
Well, then, are you gonna change number 9 and
You
permitted
don't think
by
you could bring
right?
it home now?
I don't think so, cause you
Number
have
9.
restrictions on size.
The one, commercial vehicles
On,
Where are you?
on the
just in,
second page, under,
No, we'll be clear that it is allowed for home occupations that require planning board approval, but not by right. So in other words, if you are gonna be a home occupation, say a plumber, and you're gonna have a commercial vehicle parked, Joe's Plumbing, then you do have to come to the planning board in that case. Because the idea of the ones that don't require any approval, are supposed to be invisible. Doesn't have to be, that's just the way this is structured.
Why would we prohibit medical and dental practices.
You don't have to. They often are just because of they tend to be high volume.
Certain things go down the drain.
That's true
Does that
too.
count as
Dentist,
hazardous?
you know what I mean?
That is true too.
Maybe, I don't know.
No, I mean, that
Hurts
is
the
true,
water.
is that if you're on septic, it could be an issue. There's also an issue potentially around medical waste.
Okay.
I mean, again, it doesn't mean
Makes
you're not
sense.
doing things wrong, but
Makes sense.
Can they get a special exception if they wanted to? They'd have to go to zoning, say somebody had a big house. There used to be a dentist in town, right? That had that big white house, right?
I mean, we could. It's, again, it's kind of one of those things where you could allow it with some additional restrictions, or you could just allow it. I mean, it's a choice. It's not allowed in a number of ordinances simply because it tends to be more impactful.
Some people do physical therapy at their house, right? Their PT, whatever the job is.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't be considered a medical office. At least I wouldn't consider it
I
a
don't
medical
know.
office.
Okay.
Somebody who's doing massage or whatever. But
It's medical, no, isn't it medical when they do physical therapy? I don't know.
I think the intent here is to mean doctors' offices, dentists, those kinds of uses is the intent.
I mean, I guess medical is in the eye of the recipient, right? And a lot of things pass for medical that,
Right.
you know, so
We could be clearer, I suppose.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would define that,
Right.
but,
There's a line between personal service, I guess,
yeah,
and
right,
medical.
right,
Holistic medicine.
Right.
right.
Existing non-conforming home occupations.
We have to change the date on that, aren't we?
Which one?
Yeah,
where-
that's just
where are you
straight
at?
out of the existing
That's
ordinance.
just straight on the existing.
What number are you on?
5049.
9?
Yeah, you are right, we'd probably want to change the dates on that.
And existing illegal home occupations?
Yeah.
Might have to change that too. Do we have any existing illegal?
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
think we've established that over the course of our time here.
Case closed.
Okay. You keep calling it a home occupation, which is true, but, and some of the wording you say home, but you don't say home or garage, because it seems like a lot of people are running them out of their garage unless you want to say all structures on the property.
Yeah,
Just asking, in
I
case
thought it
they
was
want to
included.
split hairs, it's out of the garage, not the home.
This way,
it's
this
more
way you
like-
avoid any controversy later on.
Home property, not home building.
Yes.
I know, but just some of the words do say in the home. They don't say
Right.
the structures
Oh, I
on the
see what you're
property.
saying.
This way you clarify it.
Yeah, we can make that clear.
When you added 50401G, the street parking shall be adequate for anticipated customers or employees, if any, although no parking areas more than those necessary for normal residential purposes will be allowed.
Right.
Before we had like a 2-space limit, I think,
We did, yeah.
and, I mean, we have neighbors that have, 6+ cars in their driveway at all times, so I'm just thinking that we should keep that, I can't remember now if it still says 2 spaces.
I don't think I took that out of the ordinance. I wonder if it's in the site plan. Let me double check.
Oh, maybe that's where I saw it. But I'm just afraid that this will, allow too many cars, I guess.
We definitely, I mean, the intent is definitely to kind of expressly not do that.
So if so this can stay as is, as long as it's still in the site plans.
Let me just double check. Yeah, the site plan doesn't say anything about,
Where did I see it?
it doesn't say anything about it. I didn't think I took anything like that out of the ordinance, but let me double check.
I
It
remember
might still
that.
be in there and I just am missing it.
I don't remember something on, that references 2 spaces. But I'll double check. Yeah, so what, you're right, in that what our ordinance allows is, what we say is sufficient off-street parking shall be provided for any non-resident employees, customers, and suppliers who may normally be expected to exceed, to need parking spaces at one time. Driveways may be used for client parking. Where additional parking is desired, a maximum of 2 parking spaces is permitted. Parking spaces shall be minimum, et cetera. So,
Oh,
what
so
that's saying is that you can have 2 parking spaces kind of above and beyond what you would normally have for your residential use.
Oh, okay. Been interpreting that wrong.
For home occupations that are permitted by right, you wouldn't want that. I think, but that's the general language. So, yeah, you're right, that's a change. So, do we want to allow more parking than what would be typical, as we currently do? I mean, we could make that change. And if we make that change, then what I would suggest is that we strike G altogether, and that we take the language that's in G and put it under home occupations by right, where you don't want additional parking spaces, and then under home occupations that require planning board approval, we modify that to basically to use, actually, that is what we do. So if you go to home occupations requiring planning board approval, 5 is our existing language, that's where the 2
Oh, there
spaces
it
are.
is. Okay.
So I just need to take G out and of the requirements that apply to all, cause it conflicts with that. So I'll take
Okay.
G out, and I'll just put that under home occupations permitted by right. So you're right.
Okay, all right. I thought I saw it somewhere on there.
Yeah, you're right.
Started going back and.
I saw it too, and I
could.
was trying to get it out of one section and keep it in the other.
And then the last one, under home occupations permitted by right. Number 3 says only the residents' personal vehicles are on the property.
I'm sorry, where are you?
Under the.
3, only the residents' personal vehicles are allowed.
Should that be kept on the property or stored on the property or something like that? Cause it just seems to conflict. Because, say somebody, I don't know, does some sort of crafting thing and sells them out of their house. People are gonna be coming and picking that up.
You're not supposed to do that, but.
Is that supposed to be a requiring?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a
language?
requirement because you've got
Okay.
customers coming to the home.
Okay,
That could be better worded though.
Yeah.
In fact, it could come out entirely because 9 says prohibits exterior storage of commercial vehicles. So that's really the intent, is so you can't have a commercial vehicle.
oh, all right.
So that could probably just come out.
So if you couldn't have a truck with writing on the side of it?
That's right,
That's
you're gonna,
associated with your business as a home occupation permitted by right, yes.
But if you didn't, like James said, if you didn't have a home occupation, you could park there.
You could, this doesn't relate to that, it's just that if your business is that, because if your business, if you've got a vehicle parked in front of your home with the name of your business on it that you're operating out of the home, that's a sign that
Okay.
you're operating the
Okay.
business, that's the idea.
Okay.
okay, and you're saying, so those businesses would just have to come for approval?
Yeah, if you wanna do that, you can do it, you just have to come for approval.
Yeah.
Okay,
The subdivision regulations have in there a weight limit on vehicles, 15,000 pounds
It
or
might,
ton vehicle,
it might,
pretty sure. I'm going off memory unless it got removed somewhere along the way. But there is
I don't remember it, but
there
it
used
might.
to be.
Would be in the appendix.
can look and see about that. But we can definitely define commercial vehicle.
Oh, it's up to the board, but I'm thinking it used to be in there.
Could be.
Would it be a weight limit, you think? I'm not
13,000 pounds, probably.
seeing in,
1,000 pounds, there was something way back.
If there isn't, I can put that in so that we can be clearer what we mean about a commercial vehicle. A weight limit's probably a good way to do it.
okay.
Anybody have anything else? Okay.
So I can go ahead and make these changes.
Yes, I guess we can go ahead and make changes.
Jay.
And thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Pretty good.
Get another draft out to everybody.
Okay. Great.
We're still gonna have legal look at it though, right, for the
Yeah,
firearm part?
yeah, just to make sure we don't run afoul of anything.
So I guess that's all we have for the report this evening, unless anybody else. So I'll move on to committee reports. Any reports from any committees, Kim?
The recreation department's not coming, they didn't know. They were on the agenda.
Oh, that's right, yeah, the Recreation Commission
Yeah.
did not come in for number 2,
Yeah, I
so
called them, they didn't.
they didn't,
Oops.
okay.
Well, they're already approved, I think, for the Board of Selectmen
Oh,
anyway.
did-
so-
are they? Okay. They just wanted input, I guess. All right.
Did they need to come to the planning board? It didn't seem to think they did. Yeah.
They let us know, right?
They,
Did you see that picture you had there? Wasn't there a picture about it?
There
yeah,
was
they
a,
sent
there
me
was a picture.
And they thought that we were the 17th, and I told them the 15th. I thought they were coming.
I mean, you don't have to hold a hearing if you don't want to. It's, they've sent
Is
you
it-
the info.
Is it more of a courtesy then?
Yes.
It's going right next to the tennis courts.
Yeah, right there, yeah.
There it is.
So that's approved already?
I think
Yes.
it went before the approval by the board or
I
something.
was at CIP last night. so-
Yeah.
Right, yeah, it was on the CIP.
Well, it's
plan.
off the CIP now, right? They used impact fees last night to pay.
Still in the, it's, we're still showing it on the spreadsheet.
Still-
Yeah, the 122, yeah.
They're using a
Gotcha.
lot, mostly impact fees.
They took 122,000
Yeah.
and it was approved.
I still needed another 53.
Did they send a picture of one, the next one? Like sort of what it looked like down the Cape?
No,
Maybe
just
not.
the overall picture.
Oh, just what a court looks like?
Another one? Wait, is there another one?
No,
No, you
Oh,
had
okay.
it. You had it back.
the first one.
Yeah, they had sent a picture last night to the board
This
that
is showing where,
showed what it looked like.
yeah, this is the picture.
Yeah, they had another one where they actually showed it, you know, you drive up to it, and it kind of looked like a tennis court, pickle court, yeah. So
That'll be
they
nice.
weren't sure if they had to come in front of the planning board because of,
Are they dill or sweet?
what did he say? I missed it.
Are they dill or sweet?
Dad
It's
jokes.
very
Very
popular
dry,
nowadays.
Yes, it is.
I'm glad that they're expanding.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Okay, so, committee reports. Kim, do you have anything for committee?
No, next Board of Selectmen meeting is Monday, November 28th. The next quarterly NRPC meeting is December 21st, 7 PM at NRPC at 30 Temple Street in Nashua. And as far as the SIP, I was not there last night because I was at the Board of Selectmen meeting, so I will let you fill everyone
Okay.
in.
Well, the CIP did meet last night at the fire station. We did the priority of, or ranking of the, projects, and, we completed that, and Jay is gonna be putting together a spreadsheet for that.
I'll get that out to everybody in the board.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot, I mean, I think, most of what the priority rankings, I mean, a lot of stuff was urgent. I mean, the police department was on there, that was an urgent, for the facility. We looked at, the, recreation, and I think they were looking to, do some stuff with the tennis courts and some of the, recreation facilities in town. Those, I think is necessary, and, fire truck, I believe I think that was it urgent? I think it was urgent, yeah. So there were a lot of things. The school, had presented, and I think we kept the school as urgent, obviously because it, there is, I guess, a need for a new school in town, so that didn't really change very much. And there were a bunch of other things. The library, a lot of the, like, the police requested tasers, and a lot of the stuff dealing with information technology and stuff like that, that all comes out of the ARPA funds. So we kept that with ARPA.
We spend most of our time in the schools.
Right. So we will be giving a presentation to the planning board. It was supposed to happen tonight. We were supposed to have a presentation, but due to issues with getting meetings and so forth, it's just, we didn't have time to do that. So we will definitely put together a PowerPoint and have
You want that
For the
December
6th?
sixth?
Yeah, I think we can do that December 6th. That's fine. So.
24 hours was not enough time.
No, it was not, and we had a lot of stuff to cover, so.
Sleep.
Yes, that would definitely help. So, yeah, so that's where we are with that. The Conservation Commission met at the first Thursday of the month, and the Lower Merrimack River Local Advisory Committee next meeting is November 30th at City Hall in Nashua, and that's at 7 o'clock. And I believe some people from Litchfield will be attending that, who have an interest in the Limerlac, so.
2 people were approved last night from the Board of Selectmen.
Oh, good.
It was
Good.
Jeff Town,
Jefftown.
Recreation.
Yeah,
And
I think
also
I
Scouts, right?
Okay.
And Diane Plansky,
Diane.
I think
Okay.
was Conservation, right?
Yes.
So now you have Planning Board, Conservation, Recreation. So,
Great.
I'm not sure if there's another person, but
Yeah, there was somebody else, I think, who expressed interest. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a couple people at that
yeah, there's still
meeting, so-
openings if people want to
Great.
join.
Okay. Other than that, that's all I have. Kate, do you have anything?
Budget committee meets again on Thursday. We're still working through the school's budgets, but we don't vote on those until December 1st. So I think we have a meeting this week and next, or no, just this week. And then for more presentations, and then actually making some decisions on the 1st. And then I'm planning on going to the NHMA conference tomorrow and Thursday, and looking at things like energy efficiencies. There's a workshop working together to promote environmental health, community choice aggregation, which I'd never heard of, but I found that pretty interesting, and financing community revitalization projects. Those are some of the seminars that I'm looking at going to, so I will have, some news on those next meeting.
Yeah, I'm going to that too for the ethics policy, and then I was looking at, they had things for planning, right?
They do.
The little homes and, but you don't know,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
There were other things for planning there as well, so.
I think some of those were virtual that I was hoping
Yeah.
to.
Tag
I
on
think
it.
we have access to the recordings afterwards, so
Yeah.
I'll probably
That'd be
see
nice
those
if we
later.
do. Good,
Okay, great.
nice.
Thank you. The approval of the meeting minutes of November 1st, 2022. Did everyone have an opportunity to take a look at those? Have any questions, concerns? I thought they looked pretty good.
Oh, no, they look fantastic.
They're very well done.
By you.
Yes, by Mr. Sullivan, thank you. Always does a wonderful job.
Does.
So.
We have to set you up a bunk next to Mr. Brunel's.
That's right. Okay. I'll entertain a motion, excuse me, after I lose my voice, I'll entertain a motion to have the minutes of November 1st, 2022 approved.
I'll approve the minutes.
A second.
I have a motion by Kim, second by Ron. Do I have a further discussion? All those in favor of approval of the November 1st, 2022 minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Okay, motion passes 4-0 2. Okay, thank you. What else do we have here? Any other business this evening? Jay, do you have anything?
I do not.
Joan, do you have anything?
Anything on Albuquerque study?
No, not yet, but that reminds me, I do need to follow up on that. I
Okay.
forgot.
Thank you.
Thank you for the grant information also on the Pinecrest sidewalk. We worked with Kim Kleiner to get that in,
Yes,
so
we
thank you.
got it in.
We're trying for another grant opportunity for that sidewalk.
Right.
Although, do you remember how wide that was? Is it gonna be the same width as the one that's there to Hilljack?
Yes.
Because the highway department wanted to know they wouldn't be able to clear it in the winter because the machines are wide and they can't turn it around.
Right.
So it would not be
I heard
plowed in the
that.
winter, but I told him I'd check to find out. Okay.
Can live with it. Fortunately, it's not, it won't be a state one, so we don't have to enter into any kind of agreement, just to do what we want to do. In other words, we'll do what we do with the existing sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay. I have nothing further this evening. I guess I'd actually motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstain, motion passes 6-0-0. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we will see you in December. Take care.